Outsourcing tends to have a bad reputation as being low quality. Partner Hero's value-based approach raises the bar for the outsourcing industry by investing in employee empowerment and career growth, paying above-market salaries, and maintaining a focus on quality and performance. They're more than a service provider. They're also a thought partner for the startups they serve. It's simple. Brands that care about quality customer experience choose Partner Hero. They offer flexible terms and the ability to scale quickly, perfect for startups, with quality assurance baked into every program and offices around the world. So Partner Hero can provide truly global coverage. Outsourcing has long been available mainly to big businesses, but Partner Hero is challenging business as usual by bringing the benefits of outsourcing to businesses of all sizes with short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times. 10 years ago, when we were launching the Action Catalyst, we could have used a few extra hands to help us scale quickly, even if it was just for a short while. You can bet that with their expertise, fast onboarding, and core focus on quality, Partner Hero would have had our attention. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of an existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head over to partnerhero.com/Action Catalyst to book a free consultation with our solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from the Action Catalyst, and they'll even waive the setup fee. Now, on to the show.
From Nashville, Tennessee, Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, we share insights and inspiration from movers and shakers in the world of business. Our goal is to help you increase your self-discipline, overcome procrastination, and help you to take action on all the things that really matter.
Imagine trying to be successful in Hollywood. And imagine trying to keep all of your principles intact and maybe go so far as to say your spiritual beliefs, but your integrity, your commitment, your the values that you hold. And imagine trying to make it in Hollywood without compromising those values. You are about to hear the story of a man who seems to have done that pretty well. His name's DeVon Franklin. He is the movie producer of couple different movies. One of them, most recently, Miracles from Heaven, has worked with Will Smith for 20 years, has known Will Smith, is a New York Times bestselling author. You're going to hear the whole story, but the idea of how do you become successful without compromising your values? And we're talking about sort of a spiritual guide to secular success. And what does the spiritual community have to learn about success in business from the secular community? And inversely, what can the secular community learn about success from the spiritual community? So an interesting intersection and a seeming dichotomy of worlds colliding here through this interview with DeVon. So I'm so excited to introduce him to you and hear his story of a man here who has been ultra successful in Hollywood and who has done it the right way and has a message for you about succeeding both spiritually and succeeding in the secular world, or just succeeding in whatever success looks like for you. It's a powerful message on being bold and being humble. I think you're gonna love it. We'll get started just after this message.
This episode is sponsored by Southwestern Coaching. Southwestern Coaching has helped over 11,000 people increase their incomes by over 25% on average. As a successful salesperson, you know the importance of increasing your sales, but sometimes you might just need a little extra push and accountability to meet your goals and grow your business. Southwestern Coaching will help you increase your income through one-on-one sales and leadership coaching tailored specifically to your needs. Together, we will elevate sales. To schedule your free one-on-one business action planning session with a Southwestern coach, go to www.southwesternconsulting.com/action catalyst.
So if I'm honest with you, the reason that we have our guest today, just point blank, is because we share the same literary agent. And when Nina says I need to do something, I just kind of do it blindly because that's how she is, and she's always connected to amazing people. And if you haven't met DeVon Franklin or heard of him, his story is incredible. He's a Hollywood producer, a minister, New York Times bestselling author, is a regular on many major media shows, Dr. Oz, Super Soul Sunday, Fox News. And he's been, he produced the movie Miracles from Heaven, which was actually my first encounter with him. And DeVon, Will Smith said this about him. He said, in the 20 years I've known DeVon, he's lived his life in the same way that he makes his movies, with commitment, humility, and a work ethic that demands respect. And he's got a new book that has just come out. It's called The Hollywood Commandments. And I love the subtitle, A Spiritual Guide to Secular Success. DeVon, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here.
Oh, man, thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here. As you said, when Nina says do something, we all do it. So I'm grateful to be here.
Well, and there was one of the things, self-discipline. Everyone who listens to this show knows that's one of our central themes. And, one of the very first things I saw when I started watching some of your videos and things is you said your discipline contributes to your destiny. So how did you come up with that? And give us a little context for that.
Yeah, I really, really believe that. I mean, I came up with it because I've had to live it. And, I've been in Hollywood for 20 years and have, worked my way up from unpaid intern to now being a producer and running my own company and having a deal with 20th Century Fox. And it is the discipline that has created the path for me to be successful. And I think that the discipline is required for anyone endeavoring to live in their dreams and achieve their purpose, because sometimes, we overlook it. And I believe so many times people aren't reaching the level of satisfaction they want in their life, not because it hasn't been ordained for them, but because there may be an area of their life which they need to employ more discipline. I mean, starting as an intern, I started getting coffee and running errands and picking up lunch orders and copying scripts and doing the filing and doing the faxing. And there was nothing glamorous about it, and it really required discipline. I mean, the thing I wanted at 18 years old was my own production company, and I had come from the Bay Area to Los Angeles to go to USC and pursue the dream of Hollywood and ultimately having my own company. And it took 18 years before I actually was able to achieve that goal. And that required a tremendous amount of discipline, not only personally but professionally, because I believe what you do personally shows up professionally. And that just required a lot of sacrifice. It required a lot of focus. And every day, committing to that day, doing the work, showing up, doing my best to be of service, and trusting that eventually over time, the very things that I was working towards would happen, and they did happen. So that's why, I really huge proponent of discipline, and that's why I put it in my new book.
And one of the things, so, I think, in the very first of the Hollywood Commandments, the 10 of them, the first one is your prayers alone aren't enough, which I think, ties to some of this we'll talk about in a second. But one of the things that I loved is when you were telling the story about how you come up through Hollywood, and you were talking about taking care of people's assistants and looking after them. And can you just share a little bit about how you feel like that contributed to that journey? Because I think that's an important message that, now looking at you and, here you are maybe best-selling author, a movie producer, you're friends with Will Smith, you're married to Meagan Good. I mean, it's like you see this whole, everything that has paid off. But I think it's important for people to hear that sort of behind the scenes. So what was your philosophy on, dealing with assistants on the movie set when you first started?
Yeah, my philosophy, first of all, I didn't start on movie sets. That's the thing that some people look at Hollywood like, oh, again, glamorous. No, not at all. I started in the office. And I was working as an intern at the company that managed Will Smith, and, looking after those assistants. That was my daily job. I went to the assistants. I asked them, what work do you need done? And I would go around each assistant. I would get their filing. I would do their filing. I'd do their faxing. I would, go and get their coffee orders. I would go and, grab their lunch. And I just made myself indisposable to them. because they were the ones that were really the gatekeepers. They were the ones that were in the flow of information. They had access to the talent. They had access to the principals. And so I, befriended all of them. And to this day, two of my closest friends I met when I was an intern, and they were assistants. And, we still hang out and are a big part of each other's lives. And so that, in the book, I talk about how we sometimes misjudge who's important and who's not. And based upon who we don't think is important, we may adjust our behavior. But I believe that that's not what we should do. We should treat everybody equally and be of service to as many people as we possibly can. And that has served me well, because some of those assistants went on to, run production companies and work at networks, work at studios. And so people remember how you treated them on the way up. People remember how you treated them when they didn't think that you may need them. And so I think anyone out there, listening, it's like, please, let's not modify our behavior. Let's treat everyone with respect. Let's try and meet everyone's need. And I have no doubt that that'll be a main asset to your career.
I love it. I love it. So the Hollywood Commandments, and it's 10 commandments, fittingly. Before we dive into the commandments, I want to talk about the subtitle, because you had a spiritual guide to secular success. What expand a little bit on that subtitle. Like, why did you choose that message?
Because I think that is just the dichotomy. That's the tension sometimes, is that, can you be spiritual and can you be secular? And I wanted to write the book from having been in Hollywood for 20 years, because I say, well, wait a minute, there's a lot of things in the secular world and environment that people of faith can learn from. And there's a lot of things in the spiritual world that people in the secular environment can learn from. So I wanted to do a book that really strikes the intersection between what most people think are the polar opposites. But I have actually found that they complement one another quite well. And so that's why I say, it's a spiritual guide to secular success, because one of the things that I have found, especially people of faith, there has been this fear of even feeling like you had the permission to go after secular success. And so I wanted to write this book as a way to be a guide. Here's how you can do it. And then also make people feel like they have the permission, like, no, you can go do it, and you should go do it. And here's why you should go do it. And here's how you can do it in a way that will enhance your faith, not require a compromise of your faith.
And you feel like you've been able to, legitimately, you feel like you've been able to strengthen your faith. You've been able to stay in alignment with your spiritual philosophies, and you've been able to maintain all that while building this huge career in Hollywood, living there in it every day with celebrities and everything that comes around with that. You feel like that's actually possible.
Oh, not only is it possible, it's doable. It's done. It's happening. Yes. And that's why I wrote, the Hollywood Commandments, because I want anyone, struggling with trying to figure out how to navigate these worlds, they could do it. And the thing that, Hollywood is just, it's just a metaphor. It's just a place that I've worked, that I've been able to extract these tips and tools. The book is not for people exclusively in Hollywood. And I think what happens is we think, Hollywood has greater temptation, and we kind of look at Hollywood at the expense of looking where we are. I don't believe that. I believe that no matter where we work, depending on our ambition, we are tempted based upon what we want. So if you're in a career and you want to move up, then you're tempted to figure out how to do that. And sometimes it can come, you may make that choice at the expense of what you believe, at the expense of who you truly are, at the expense of your personality. And so I don't think that the temptations are any greater in Hollywood than in any one's particular industry. So, I want to be clear about that. I'm using Hollywood, as kind of a test subject to show, hey, here's how you can be successful. But I know that these rules and tips are applicable to any walk of life.
Well, and I want to, I think this audience here is probably, I don't know. I guess I was going to say we're probably more on the spiritual side, even though it's a very, secular podcast, I guess, by design. But one of the commandments I wanted to talk about is actually number 6. And it says you get what you negotiate. And the reason I thought this would be interesting is because I think, I think there's a part of in this, from coming from the spiritual angle, you think, I have to be sort of soft. I have to be like I just said, be kind and humble and graceful, right? But you talked specifically about why negotiation. So can you give us a little bit on that commandment specifically?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I talk about this particular commandment because I see so many people, under negotiate because they don't first identify their value. One of the things as it relates to negotiating and understanding your worth is just first and foremost coming to a realization that you are worthy, that you create worth, that you create value, and that you deserve to be compensated for that. And that may seem super simple, but there are so many people that I've come across that I've, coached and I've given advice to where that was the one thing they were overlooking. So as a result of not really coming to a place of saying, you know what, I am valuable. I do create value for my organization. I am creating worth, and I deserve to be compensated for that. Because they weren't doing that, they were downplaying the negotiation, and they were lowering what they feel like they should be compensated for. So to get what you negotiate, not what you're worth, you first have to come to the recognition, yes, I am valuable, and this is what I create. The second thing that has to be done is to not assume that where you work is going to take care of you. The organization, the company, is interested in the company. They have the company's best interest at heart, number one. And as a result of that, they're always going to look out for the company. Now, in a negotiation, the company can get a win and you can get a win. But you must know that you have to be an advocate for the value you create in order to get the win for yourself. The other part that's important that I talk about is you have to define what compensation is. I believe that compensation is more than just money. Compensation can be lifestyle. Compensation can be, hey, I want to get home by 6 o'clock to take care of the kids. Okay, can I factor that in to how I do my job? And companies can get really creative when it comes to compensation and when they want to keep you. And the other part when it comes to negotiating is you have to face your fears head on. So often, the people that I've coached, and one of the reasons why I wrote the commandment, is because people are afraid. Oh, I'm afraid, well, what if I ask for this and they say no or they get mad? No employer is going to get mad at you for having a high view of the work you create. They may not see it the same way, and that's okay. But don't be afraid to ask for what you believe you're worth and then advocate in order to achieve that. And these are some of the tips and tools in this particular commandment that I have seen work. And having been on the short end of having had a negotiation when I was an executive and I did not advocate for myself and I accepted something less than the value, and I had to live with that for years, I said, okay, never again, never again. And when it came time to renegotiate, I certainly made sure that I got what I believed I was worth and got the compensation I was looking for. And that's why I wrote this commandment, to help others do the same.
So how do you reconcile the issue of, I'm not the best Bible memorizer person, but I think there's something in Galatians about walking with humility and all of that stuff. But then, I'm not disagreeing with you. I am agreeing with you, but it's also it's hard. How do you reconcile these two things where you go, in the business world, it's kind of if I don't fight for myself, I'm going to get eaten up. But, my spiritual beliefs are kind of saying, hey, be humble. Have you thought through that?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, because so many times we misinterpret the scripture. Humility references our relationship to God. Humility is about me understanding that I'm under God's authority and I am under God's power. And it's not my own power. It's the power of him operating through me. So I am absolutely humble as it relates to walking in God and with God every single day. Now, what happens is when it comes to negotiating for ourselves and it comes to advocating for what we want, being an advocate for yourself is not arrogant. Evaluating, telling a company, hey, here's what I'm worth, here's what I create, that's not arrogant. There is nothing in that lacks humility. When we begin to eat our own praise, when we begin to say, oh, it's because of me that this, and this, and this, then it's okay, that borders on arrogance. But when it comes to being an effective negotiator and advocate for the value you create, that is, I believe, exactly what God wants us to do. Because when we are in business, when we are operating in our purpose, we do deserve and we do have the right to say, you know what, this is what I want, this is what I believe God is asking me to ask for, and I am going to be an advocate for myself Because if I'm not an advocate for myself, who else is going to be an advocate for me? And I do believe that faith without works is dead. That means faith with works is alive. And too often when it comes to negotiating, we just say, oh, God will take care of me. Well, maybe God, the way he wants to take care of us is he's given us the ability to be effective negotiators. He's given us the ability to advocate for what he's already called us to go for. We have not because we ask not. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. So I do believe that effectively negotiating is not against humility. We negotiate understanding God is in control, and he has given us the ability to advocate for what we believe we are worth.
So that whole idea about faith without works is dead. I think that connects to one of the other commandments. It's the very, very first one. Again, so the book is called the Hollywood Commandments, which is kind of, again, it's sort of like what is a seeming juxtaposition and a spiritual guide to secular success, which again is this sort of seeming juxtaposition. But you talk about your prayers alone aren't enough. And so, if you live in the church world, it's like, hey, pray. But then you got to come out first thing and you say, there's a little more to it than that. So what's your philosophy there?
Yeah, I believe that too often we pray and we don't do. So the commandment doesn't say prayers don't work. It just says that prayers alone aren't enough. And I do believe that we should be praying and preparing. This is a key tenet of this particular commandment, that we got to pray, and then we get up and we prepare for what we just prayed for. Because too often we pray, and I believe that prayer, sometimes we use it to mask our fear. Because a lot of times we're afraid to actually go after what we believe God has put in our heart. So as a result, we say, oh, I'm praying on it. Okay, that's fine. Pray on it, but you got to also go do. You got to take steps of faith that align with what you just prayed. If somebody says they're going to, if you invite someone over your house and they RSVP and they say, oh, yeah, I'm coming. So what do? We clean up our house. Why? Because we expect the person to arrive. We have to treat our prayers the same way. We expect God to answer. So as an act of expectation, we get ready. And this preparation thing is so important because I do see so many people of faith. They have the prayer part down, but their preparation is not where it needs to be. And if God were to answer our prayers when we are unprepared, we would squander the blessing when it arrives. So I do believe firmly that this is a mixture of the spiritual and the practical. So I pray, and then I get up, I go to work, I get there on time. I'm of service. I meet the need of my colleagues and my boss, whether I like them or not. My feelings about who I work for should not determine the quality of my service or my preparation. So this commandment is all about the power of what happens when we do both. And I believe the combination of both makes us unstoppable.
Wow, those are some good things there. So I think that's a powerful concept that sometimes we use prayer to mask our fear. Prayer is sort of an easy veil to hide behind, that nobody challenges you, nobody pushes you, nobody calls you to do more and do better whenever we use sort of like the prayer excuse.
Right. Right.
All right.
Man, the prayer excuse says, yeah.
So one of the I know we're starting to sort of run low on time as I figured it would. Actually, before I ask you this last one, so there's 10 commandments here. I just grabbed 3 of them that I thought kind of spoke to me or I thought were interesting. Before we dive into this last one, where do you want people to? Where should people go, DeVon, to either learn about you, connect with you? Obviously, they can get the book and wherever, but where do you want to head people to?
Yes, just go to my website, DeVonFranklin.com. You can go there. You can sign up for my mentor mail. There's a lot of free resources on the website. There's also a link there that you can buy the book, and you can definitely, engage with me there. And I have all my social media handles there. I have my Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter there, and would love to, engage and interact and help you as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, and one thing, we didn't get a chance. There is your other book. Well, you have a couple other books, but the book, The Wait, that you and Meagan Good wrote together about sexual discipline is pretty well. It's one of the things is an amazing. I want to make sure to just do a little sort of plug for that because I think there's a lot of people here who'd be interested in that. But so coming back to the Hollywood Commandments,
thank you.
Number 8 of the 10 says your difference is your destiny, and I know. So my wife lost her mom when she was 15. I know you lost your dad when you were 9. These are painful things, and when you talk about your difference is your destiny, can you kind of like tie all that together for us? Like, what does that mean exactly? And then also, how do I know what my difference is?
How do I mean, look in the mirror. The difference is actually the easy part because none of us are the same. Even if you're twins, you're not the same. There's something different about you. So I think the difference part is actually the easier part. I think sometimes embracing the difference is the hardest part. Having grown up as a middle child, of 3 boys and have, never really felt like I completely fit in, and also for some people, even writing this book, some people in the spiritual world say I'm too secular, and some people in the secular world say I'm too spiritual. So it took a lot of courage for me just to say, I have to own who I am. I have to own what makes me different and believe that is going to be enough. And having navigated my career owning that difference, it's not easy. It's hard because it's painful, because a lot of the time you're alone, you're charting a course that others have not gone down before, and we all have a need to want to be accepted. And sometimes we have to sacrifice that need for acceptance because acceptance in some instances would require us to forfeit what makes us different just to fit in. And having had those moments and having seen the benefit of owning difference, that's why I wrote this commandment, because I do believe that all of us are created to make an impact in the world. And I do believe that impact is directly related to our difference, what makes us think different, how we look different, how we create different. All of our purposes, are different to a degree. Our passions are different. Our talents are different. And that's what makes the world the incredible place that it is. And I think that's the highest testament to God of honoring that difference and honing that difference as a way to say, God, I love how you created me, and I don't want to change who I am. And I want to harness the full power of who I was created to be. And that's what this commandment is all about. And I do believe our difference, it takes us to our destiny because we all were uniquely suited to do something in the world, and it's our difference that will help us get there, not exchanging what makes us different for what makes us common. That is a sure way to never operate in the fullness of what we were created to do. And so this idea of difference, we have to identify it, we have to hone it, we have to embrace it, we have to hold on to it. And again, not easy, but absolutely worthwhile because in the end, it will pay off. When you look at the people who have made the greatest impact in the earth, they are the ones who have owned their difference. Even at the expense of people talking about them, people saying they're crazy, they owned it, and as a result, the world is better for it. And that's why I wanted to write this commandment, to encourage people to do the same.
I love it. DeVon Franklin, my friends, the book is called The Hollywood Commandments, A Spiritual Guide to Secular Success. DeVon, man, thank you for just bringing the message of God and bringing spirituality into, I think, a place that could really use a lot more of it in Hollywood. And it makes me feel good knowing there's people like you and your wife right there in the middle of everything that's going on, and to see you guys not only winning but sharing your heart is, man, it's really important. You're in a really important place in the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So grateful for all that you're doing, and giving people like myself a platform for the message to be heard.
Actually, it's really encouraging to me that people like DeVon are there in LA. I mean, I meant that from the bottom of my heart, and I mean, what a cool guy. I'm going to watch some of his videos. His interview with Oprah about his book, The Wait, was really, really powerful. And that's where I heard him say your discipline contributes to your destiny, which, by the way, this is sort of our tweetable moments segment, which is something I'm trying to do more and more so that you start engaging with our guests. So you can tweet at DeVon Franklin. It's DEVON Franklin, all one word. So if you're on Twitter, shout out to him and say hello. Let him know that you heard him here on the podcast. It always helps us get, other guests, more well-recognized guests as we reach out and connect with people like that. So it's good to have you reach out to them. So I'm going to give you a couple other of my favorite tweetable moments that came out of that interview from DeVon. So one of them, which I think is very fitting, right, in Hollywood, people remember how you treated them on the way up. People remember how you treated them on the way up. I loved this one. Being an advocate for yourself is not arrogant. And I think that's such a key learning lesson and understanding, that distinction between advocating for yourself is not arrogant. Here's another one that I thought was so powerful. We're going to talk more about this in a second. Sometimes we use prayer to mask our fears. Sometimes we use prayer as a way of masking our fears and protecting us from facing fears. I think that's good. And then when he mentioned this part, he said, people of faith are good at the prayer part, but often not good at the preparation part. People of faith are good at the prayer part, but often not at the preparation part. We don't expect God to show up, and so we'd squander the blessing if he did anyways. That is such a powerful thought. And then the last thing I thought, that was really like a tweetable moment for me was when DeVon said, every successful person in Hollywood got there by owning their difference. Embracing the difference is the hardest part. Those are such good ideas and just, little moments of learning from somebody who, this is a guy that is like friends with Will Smith, right? Like is making major movies. He's married to Meagan Good. I don't know if you know who that is, but she's a major famous celebrity. And, I just think it's so powerful, and it's like I said, it's encouraging to me to know there's a couple right there in the heart of things happening that are advancing, sort of Christian values and biblical concepts, and in DeVon's case, making actual Christian movies. But as I was thinking about everything that he said to me and how am I going to pull that together into my life, and how do I sort of distill his message down into taking action on it, right, for me personally, I think there were sort of four parts that really, I think, emanate sort of from his story, his network, who he is, the things he's done, the things that he's working on. We get to chat, of course, a little bit before and after every interview. And I think, these are sort of like almost like the four phases for how somebody could become, a huge Hollywood success. And I think the first one is don't hide. Don't hide. And I thought that was pretty insightful, this idea that sometimes we use prayer as a mask for our fear. Well, and it's kind of like, well, yeah, obviously we use prayer when we're scared. That's part of why we should pray. But we also use it almost as like this excuse or this justification for not having to act. Right, and that is like the ultimate protected excuse is to say, oh well, I'm praying about it, and because nobody wants to intrude there, on sacred ground. But you have to be honest with yourself about saying, am I hiding behind prayer and using that as a purpose for procrastinating? Am I using prayer as a purpose for procrastinating? Because the payoff of just praying is that you don't have to act. It's like, oh, I want God to do it for me. I just want God to take care of it for me. And of course he does. Of course, God ultimately at the end of the day is determining our steps, right? But he's inviting us and challenging us also to take action and for us to step up. And so don't hide. Don't hide behind that. And maybe it's not prayer that you're hiding behind, right? Like maybe it's some other excuse that you're hiding behind. Maybe you're not even wanting to admit and say, gosh, I do feel this dream on my heart. I do feel compelled to want to accomplish this goal, or I do want to go back to school, or I do want to whatever, write a book or become the top producer or break the company record but you're not even wanting to acknowledge that. You're trying to hide from it, and it's like the opposite of owning it. So don't hide. It's like that call on your heart, whether you're this is a spiritual thing or not, like it's there for a reason. You're being pulled in a direction, so don't hide from it. Embrace it, which leads me, I think, to the second phase here, which is don't wait. So first of all, don't hide. You got to acknowledge that it's there. And then the second one is don't wait. Okay, so now you know you have this dream. Now you know you have this calling. Now you feel moved to go in a direction. So go. Like, do it now. Take action now. Don't hesitate. Don't delay. Don't wait. Like, move. You have to act. And I can only imagine what that looks like in Hollywood, right? Somebody who, you've got a limited window probably to make a connection with somebody or to make an impression, and you have to act. It's like you have one moment to go, introduce yourself to somebody, make your case, try to create a door opening, and then make the most out of it. And that's how every dream is there's often these split seconds that the door is open, that it's cracked, and it's like the people who win, the people whose dreams come true, it's not because it was destined for them or because they had more talent or whatever. Often it's because they acted. They saw that crack in the door and boom, they hit it. It's like intense speed. I even sort of think of what we've kind of learned from some of the Navy SEAL culture about this dichotomy of patience and action. It's like this you need this combination of being patient, and then the moment there's that opening, like boom, you act, you go, you fire, you take advantage, and you move on that opportunity. So obviously your dreams aren't going to come true if you're hiding from them, and you have to get out of that first, and then once they're out in the open, then you have to be willing to act. And I think that brings me to step 3, or phase 3, which is be bold. Be bold. Like when I think of DeVon's story, and I think of somebody, first of all, just making it in Hollywood, you have to be pretty bold, right? Like you have to really go for it. You really are you're swinging for the fence. But the other thing that I love is look at what he's doing now, right? Like he is talking about Scripture. He is making movies about Christianity. He is under fire, under heat, even as somebody who is has become a very, very successful and recognized executive in Hollywood, and he's still bold. He's still pushing the limits of what's comfortable, right? Like he's talking about God. And in his book, The Wait, he comes straight out and talks about how a lack of sexual discipline, how a lack of discipline in your sex life will translate to fall in every other area of your life. And he wrote that book with Meagan, like the two of them wrote it together. But I thought it was it was powerful about, they make this connection to how a lack of discipline sexually starts to deteriorate the other areas of your life. And that's a pretty bold thing to say, and it's a pretty bold topic to handle, right? And that's part of what I just love about him is he's just bold. And I think we could all afford to be a little bit more bold, right? Like if you're in sales, it's like, be bold, go get it. Don't be afraid, knock it down, wear it with pride, like own it, and do it and be bold. And then the last one, number 4, was be expectant. Be expectant. I loved his analogy of when you invite somebody over for dinner and they say they're coming, you prepare for them and you expect their arrival, and your behavior modifies based on what you assume to be happening in the future. Right? And now based on what? Based on their commitment, based on their word, right? And so you extend an invitation to them, they accept, all you have is their word, but then you modify your behavior because you're expectant. Well, God has RSVP'd in that way, right? Like Jeremiah 29:11. And if you're a Christian, this is like famous verse. As for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope and to give you a future. Like if you're a believer, God has promised you that. So are you expecting that he is going to give you those things? Are you expecting him to show up? And even if you're not a believer, like if you have an expectant hope for the future, if you believe that tomorrow can be better than today, then you start acting as such. You start modifying your behavior and doing the work and preparing for it so that you don't squander it when it comes, right? Don't invite success to show up in your life and then not be prepared to take advantage of it when the opportunity does. Just like don't invite someone to come to your house and then not have a meal prepared for them when they show up. You have to be expectant. You have to believe and know that this goal, this dream, this hope, this want, this desire that you have in your life, that once you have invited it, that it's going to show up. And that is what world changers do. So don't hide, don't wait, be bold, and be expectant. Well, that about wraps up the Action Catalyst podcast for this week. If you haven't yet, please log in to whatever your favorite medium is to listen to the show and both rate this podcast and leave a comment, as that helps new prospective listeners determine if the show's really a good fit for them.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and screenshot this episode to share with your friends on social media. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst and subscribe to our video podcast on YouTube. Thanks for listening.